welcome back to the show. My name's Chad, and forward to my guests this evening are the creators of a project that we've been following since it began over on Kickstarter on February 14th, and they're in the last week of their project. It's Love Letters Every Day by Background Comics. So let me bring in the creators. We'll find out about them and their comic and their experience with the project. Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
So before we get started talking about the campaign, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about yourself and your background as a car cartoon slash comic reader and creator.
Lisa, you want to go first?
Sure. So, first of all, you guys are in for a very rare treat. John and I, who are normally in the same vicinity on the same couch, are actually not in the same location, which is why we're in different screens. So, it's going to be a little bit of a different dynamic, but anyway, I miss him, and it's sad for me. He's off having fun, but I'm here holding the fort, and I'll tell you a little bit about me after I gave you my little sob story. So I'm Lisa Burdige. I am the writer of and the co-creator of Background Noise Comic. John and I are we are partners in love and art, and we've been doing Background Noise Comic for quite a few years now. It's a diary comic, slice of life comic that's about our life, everything that goes on in the background of our life, everything from kids, family, politics, geeky stuff, mental health issues, everything. And, before I started working on Background Noise Comic, I wasn't really a comic writer. I was just a writer, and I've been a writer pretty much all my life. I write fiction, I write poetry, I write plays. I've had all of that stuff in small publications and, whatever. And I don't know. That's kind of me.
Okay. I am John, and I am in Jamaica on a work retreat, and I am very sad that Lisa is not here. And I'm sorry, Lisa, that I'm having fun. But I am a cartoonist. I have, been into cartoons and comics my whole life as a fan, and always had wanted to do them. I have done cartooning, but more like illustration and like animation professionally. Always wanted to do more comics, and Background Noise Comic is kind of our, it's like Lisa and my baby. It's kind of our, for me, it's like our first big, like, kind of like success thing. And we are now running a Kickstarter to turn it into a beautiful book called Love Letters Every Day.
So you've kind of, I think you've given them kind of, how the comic came to be, but what was there's an actual, like origin of it? How did you guys, say, hey, let's create a web comic?
Well, we actually never really said, "Hey, let's create a web comic." We kind of had been, when after we met, we always kind of wanted to do a project together, and we were kicking the tires on a lot of things. We had a bunch of ideas. We would start working on them. We'd never find time for them. We'd have a fight about it. We'd decide that it wasn't good enough. It just never quite, got off the ground. And then one day, John.
One day I noticed that it was National Pizza Day. And so I said to Lisa, it's National Pizza Day. And she said, "Oh, great, let's order a pizza," which I was really excited about because Lisa, tries to keep us eating healthy. She usually, like cooks a lot of homemade meals and stuff, and we don't order that much. So I was like really excited that we were going to order pizza. So I'm like, yay! And then Lisa was like, better yet, why don't you make a pizza from scratch? And then, I was disappointed. And so I took that funny real life moment and I was sitting at my desk and I just grabbed some printer paper and literally a Sharpie and just like really quickly drew what was going to become the basic artwork for our comic for, the bulk of that first year, which is Lisa and myself sitting on the couch with our laptops on our laps. You can't see the fourth wall, but it's the TV. And that's how we are, like every evening, working on our dreams on our laptops in front of the TV. And we just, Background Noise comic was kind of born. We realized that we could do this kind of every day. And it was our thing finally.
Now, since it's about your life, is there any topics that are maybe too or off off topic or off 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 limits, I guess?
Well, I work in an advertising agency, and I don't ever really write about work. So that's one thing I know. It seems weird, but I've just always been very sort of don't if I'm mad at my coworkers or if something funny happens, if we're going to write about it, I keep it very very generic. I'm sort of careful about that, and everything else seems to be a little bit on the table. Sometimes when it's an incident with friends, when sometimes since it is a diary comic and we're elevating or kind of surfacing something that comes up, maybe a friend, there's a comic where a friend actually says something that's very sexist and they don't think it's sexist, but I was really mad about it, or really anti-Semitic. And so we'll kind of, put a little spotlight on that so that it becomes, everybody else can sort of see how it really feels to the other person. A lot of times the comics are really about shifting there's perspective. Sometimes it's to highlight the humor, and sometimes it's to highlight the sort of the insight into life in general. So, but we try to be careful. We have 4 kids between us. We try to not write about them in ways that they are upset about. I mean, a lot of our first comics were about parenting, and so, but then as they got a little older, they started to say don't put us in the comics. So we had to kind of actually first we just took their faces out and just had them as talk bubbles, but then we had to kind of mask them a little bit because there's a lot of funny stories about being parents. If anybody out there who's a parent knows. But you always have to laugh with whoever you're including in the comic. And a lot of our friends have been in the comic and people get excited, and but for the most part, those are kind of the guardrails. And then when it comes to politics, we like to do some comics about politics. We try not to be preachy, and we try to be I don't know how can you explain? We try to make sure we're not just armchair liberaling it, and
Well,
well, we probably are armchair liberaling it. It's pretty much
Okay.
the definition of armchair liberaling because we're sitting on a freaking couch. But but it's there's a delicate line. Your one person's outrage is somebody else's. Can feel like you're being condescending or over explaining or whatever. So there's always, everybody has to be in the joke with us. Otherwise it's not fun for anybody.
Yeah, I just want to add to what Lisa said, because she said something that I would have not remembered, that we don't do stories about her work, which is very interesting. Like, because there are many times where I say, please write that down, because she actually has a lot to say about it.
Yeah.
And someday I'm hoping that we'll be able to cover that,
Yeah.
or she'll be able to cover that in some way, because it's a lot to cover, a lot of interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even, when you said like, what do I do? I didn't even like say that, in my intro bio. I don't know. It's like a separation of church and state. I just like to keep it separate.
I don't understand. So your answer, John, your answer kind of moves to my next question. How do you guys come up with, what you guys are going to, include into the comic, and what's the creative process between the two of you?
Well, the something will happen, like the little pizza thing, and the key, which we always try to point out to people, the key is remembering to write it down somewhere, because like these moments happen all the time, funny moments between people, or funny moments, or meaningful moments, or angry moments, or whatever. The key is to write them down, and then one of us will write a preliminary script. Lisa's the writer, so I think it's probably most often her, but sometimes I'll do it, and then sometimes the other person will look at it and might rewrite it, and then when we agree on the script, I put the words into Photoshop and where I think the balloons are going to be. I export the panels with the balloons from a template onto Procreate, draw the art. I try to reuse as much art as possible, because it's a diary comic and we're trying to, come out with it often. The book, Love Letters Every Day, now on Kickstarter, that book is about our first year where we did a comic every single day of the year. Now the art is a little more sophisticated and complicated, and so we do more like 2 or 3 a week. But yeah, I'll do the art. She'll look at it. Lisa will often art direct me, which I see you smiling there. Sometimes that goes well, and sometimes that's hard to take as an artist. Nobody likes to be edited, but we all need to be edited, and then we I make changes, and then we have a comic.
And I mean, from the beginning, it could be that one of us will write a script, or it could be that we'll have a conversation and say we should write a comic about that, and then one of us will write the script. And often John will take a stab at it. I'll revise it. Sometimes, most often I write it, and he will actually give me edits on it as well. So it's not like I'm just the only one giving criticism. Like, he likes to think.
Oh yeah. Sorry to have implied that. No, I absolutely push back. I do try not to like push back too much. Number one, because I do the lettering and the art, I have a lot of control over the comic, and so I don't want to impede too much into her area of it. And number two, there are times where she might write something and I might not get it at first, but then when then I trust her, and so I'll go ahead and just like do it, and then afterwards I'm like, oh, now I get it, now I see it, it totally works. So yeah, it goes both ways.
So Lisa, you mentioned that you've written nonfiction or fiction and all that. How was it, you know, taking that, what you've learned there, and using it to write the comic?
Well, I ironically, since what we do in background noise comic is mostly comic strips, we do have some storylines that have larger arcs, and in that case, it has more of a. I need some of the skills that I use in writing longer pieces of fiction, whether it's a short story even or a novel. But in truth, a lot of the comics, I would say, I came to understand how to do them from my experience as a copywriter, because in many ways advertising copy and comic writing have a lot of similarities. For example, making sure that you keep your sentences short, making sure that understanding that you have a space constraint and that the words and the pictures are going to tell the story together. When you write a novel, for example, you have to do all that work with the prose. But when you're doing sequential storytelling and when you're making ads, the images are more important in most cases than the words. The words are the punctuation to the image rather than the other way around. I do have a background as a small sprint as a playwright, and so that also was very helpful, I would say, because again, you're looking to for how do the words fit into a larger piece of art, and poetry too. I mean, I would say that and I've said this before as well in other places, that poems and ads are very similar. They both want to connect in a universal emotional place. That's like a T.S. Eliot thing, and they both want to do it in as little words as possible.
Okay.
So novel writing, not so much.
So I understand there's some very interesting characters who show up in the comic strips, specifically a squirrel.
A certain squirrel, yes. Yeah, it's we we a lot of times we couch things, issues that we want to talk about in cute comic terms. So yeah, a certain person who we don't have to name right now will do as a little squirrel with funny hair. Like we personify a lot of things, like almost everything in our comic, even though it's like based in a real life and it's based on things that really happened to us. We also have like the seasons are each characters. They're each people that we talk to. Spring and fall and summer are these distinct personalities in our comic. Death is a character. Our Roomba talks, and of course there's all the cats, which are
And our bedroom Alexa has a crush on John.
Oh yes, our bedroom Alexa, because in real life the Alexa will tend to listen to me more than it listens to Lisa for some reason.
Bedroom Alexa will not talk to me. It's not even a joke. It's completely true.
Yeah.
So, but back to the POTUS squirrel. I mean, that was it's again, like we said, we want to be able to talk about politics, and we want to be able to talk about the emotion underneath of what's going on out there in the world. And the thing about the POTUS squirrel that I think was, and this was John, so I'm going to say it, I think it was really brilliant. It's all about not in our backyard. And that felt so like, people have asked us, when do you feel like good about when something happens when you're developing a piece of art or a comic? And when that kind of came to life, that just gave me chills, because it just felt so real. Like, this is really the problem, like not in our backyard. Mm-hmm. It's not somewhere out there. It's like right here.
Yep. So let's talk about the Kickstarter right now. This is your first Kickstarter that you guys have run. What are you offering, and how has the experience been so far? Going into the last week.
Going to last, it's been good. We've had very positive response. We're definitely over the initial goal. The real impetus behind running the Kickstarter was about bringing this book into the world. It was very important to us. We chose to do it as an indie creation because we really wanted to have control over it. We wanted to make sure that it got out in a timely way. We weren't looking to wait for this to come out in another 2 years. This book really needs to be out in the world, and so that was the main impetus, and that really shows in the Kickstarter. It's mostly people are really just backing it to get a book. We do have some other rewards. We have some cool chocolate comic bars that they're kind of like Bazooka Joe, but fancy New York chocolate. And they have a little comic on them. They're super fun. They're only available if you're in the tri-state area because mailing chocolate is complicated and we just couldn't get into it. They're very delicious. They're very cute. We have a coloring book that we did that we added on as another reward if you back at a certain level. And we have hand-drawn sketch cards that John is doing about the characters that are super cute and super fun. Some a little racy, Valentine's Day themed. And we have some stretch goals. If we reach $4,000, everybody's going to get a free coloring page. We wanted to come up with things that would be available for people who are backing both to get a paperback copy of the book as well as a digital copy. So for our first stretch goal, we wanted to make sure we had something that everybody could get. And then afterwards, we have some postcards. If we hit 5,000, if we go beyond 5,000, we'll make a plushie.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, you know what? Fine.
No,
go ahead. Go ahead out there. Push
Yeah,
us to 5,000. Make us do the plushie.
Yeah.
We're
not doing a plushie. We're not.
I assume it's not going to happen with the
People
amount of
that-
days we have left.
But we have some other things up our sleeve that we could pull out. The other thing that we did that was super cool is we do have a variant cover, and we announced that last Thursday. So now if you want to get you can get either one of the covers or both of them, and they're pretty cool. I really love the variant cover.
So, as we kind of start to wrap up the interview, what is it? I mean, I know you guys were nominated for a Ringo Award. So, what is the future for background noise comic?
Well, we have a few other projects on our to-do list, for lack of a better word. We have many comics beyond in our back pocket, and what we're planning
over 1,000 on Instagram. If anybody wants to, go see what they're about right now. Yes.
And as we're taking the comics and putting them into books, they're evolving into kind of longer stories. So Year on the Couch, Love Letters Every Day, which was originally called Year on the Couch. So I apologize. That's really about that first year's journey. It's got essays that really talk about our romantic and creative journey and everything that we learned. And all the comics that are in that book are based on the comics that we made that first year or scripts that we did in that first year. So it is exclusive. It's not that you can just pull them off of the internet. They weren't all in one place originally, and they've been kind of remastered and elevated. So, but they're all based on that first year. So that's kind of the theme of the first book. Afterwards, we have some other themes that we're gonna explore. One will probably be around travel comics. One will probably be around mental health issues, and one will probably be one is definitely going to be around death and dying. because when my father was dying, um, 2 years ago, I was writing like crazy about it. And we did do some comics about the experience, but a lot of the stuff was, it was, we couldn't get it out fast enough. And also my family, it was just too raw for them at the time. And so, and it's good in a way because I have had a little bit of time to have that emotional distance to put some things into perspective. And so that's honestly the book that I've been working on in the background. And then the second thing is that when we first came up with this idea, we did, shop it around with some agents to talk about doing it in a more traditional way. And we had some great conversations, and a lot of people asked us for longer narratives based on the characters, and so we came up with this idea of writing a kind of imagined autobiography of John and I. So we have a script that we wrote last year. It's also a graphic novel. It's about John and I as if we had met in 6th grade. So John and I live in Brooklyn. We spend most of our adult life in New York City, but we grew up in the suburbs. We grew up on either side of the Hudson River in very similar suburbs, but not the same one. And we grew up on different sides of the track. So, John grew up in kind of a more a lower income African-American neighborhood, and I grew up in a more upper middle class Jewish neighborhood. And so we kind of just conflated our towns into one sort of anywhere suburb New York, and came up with a story that both looks at our history, but also kind of it looks at sort of some of the ugly history of the past. Like, we didn't know that there were plantations in New York and that there were enslaved people. So that really was this big, like, oh my God. And so this book that's kind of tentatively called The Ghost in You is about, little Lisa and little John meeting in 6th grade, going on a field trip, and awakening the ghosts of their ancestors, who start to tell them about some stuff, and they have to figure out a bit of a mystery to help everybody kind of make peace with their past.
They have to Scooby-Doo it.
They have to Scooby a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, when you guys are, ready to, promote that book, then I would love to chat with you again. But if, as we wrap up, why don't you give us a last pitch for the campaign and where people can find you.
Well, I'll let John do it because he keeps shouting out about it.
Well, on Kickstarter. Well, first of all, we're you can read our comics on Instagram at background_noise_comic. Over 1,000 comics. There's also some on Facebook and Medium and Webtoon and other places. We just started on Blue Sky, and you can find a link to the Kickstarter on our Instagram. You can look on Kickstarter for Love Letters Every Day, lovely title that Lisa came up with, and it's awesome. And like Lisa said, we have now the variant cover, which is a very cool cover that Lisa came up with the idea for, and you can tell that I'm like on vacation, and I feel bad that Lisa's not here. So, but also I want to give her the credit. Where it's due. And again, we have like add-ons like hand-drawn sketch cards, which I think is really cool, and the coloring book and other things. So yeah, Love Letters Every Day on Kickstarter. We've reached our goal, but we would like to push it farther and bring you more stretch goals. So
we also have We also have essays on Medium, both under Lisa Burdige and Background Noise Comic, like John said.
Yeah, you can get a hint of what the essays are like, even though they're not the same essays.
Yeah, they're not the same essays.
In the book, along with the comics, and also some never before seen comics in the book.
Yeah, and we're also on Substack, so and everything is free on Substack. Although we don't have all the comics on Substack, just the essays that are on Medium.
You guys also run a Patreon?
We do also run a Patreon.
Yeah, we have a Patreon.
We have a Patreon.
I don't know how much of a job I do running the Patreon, but we after this Kickstarter, we're gonna get back to our monthly Patreon letter.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm really trying to get us off Instagram because if you want to go back to our POTUS squirrel and all of his friends, it'd be nice to be a little bit less invested in some of the Meta products. So,
yeah, Instagram's where we really hit, where we have the widest number of followers, but
so
it would be nice
on Patreon, and we'll
it would be nice to not be
integrate it. It'd be nice to not go to Instagram or Blue Sky. We're trying to move over to Blue Sky.
Yeah, but just starting there. But
Yeah.
I like it. It's fun.
Yeah, we both like it. It is good.
All right. Well, I want to thank both of you for taking the time this evening to chat, and best of luck in this last week of the campaign, and hope you guys, meet that, $4,000 goal that you guys talked about, and hopefully we'll be able to chat more in the future about your other projects.
Thank you so much for
Great.
having us.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and have a good evening.
You too.